Hey, Jess the Milford photo guy here with one of my favorite gadgets and one that's hardly ever used anymore. It's called a Spotmeter. And what this does is, unlike your camera that looks over the entire range and field of view of your picture and gives you a shutter, an aperture, an ISO, an exposure, instead of looking over the whole thing, it looks at just a 1% area, a very small spot. Now with this comes the idea that, a picture can contain many different exposures. As you grow as a photographer, you'll decide which ones are more important to you. For instance, here's a picture I took when I was in Italy. This little lady here in her chapel there lighting a votive candle. We'd just gotten out of a restaurant. I was lucky to get this picture. But look at it, and you could see the difference, extreme difference of exposure between, let's say, the lady and that dark void behind her, as well as the outside lighting. Of course, it's the lady we cared about. Luckily, my camera rendered a pretty good exposure, but very different exposure between her and the background there. I think I made a little bit of an exposure compensation and was able to get her exposed and not have her get blown out or totally overexposed. Your Spotmeter could tell you the exact light values for the dark area or the lady lighting the votive candles there. And what you do is you point it, you'd get a shutter aperture combination, and then you'd set your camera thusly. You'd kind of look cool doing it. You can affect an Italian accent and start telling people what to do. You look like Super Agent with one of these things. Don't really need these anymore, and that's by and large because your camera has a built-in Spotmeter, particularly those of you who spend a little more than the entry-level DSLR camera. This camera has it, and right up on top there's a meter pattern override mode. If you're not sure if your camera has it or not, you can Google it or you can check your instruction manual if you haven't thrown that out already, and see if you have a Spotmeter command. Now, the old-timey Spotmeter was probably a lot more critical, but the built-in camera often can be adjusted and still gives you a very particular meter reading as opposed to an overall one. Importantly, you want to use this as reference to begin to experiment and see how different light values can affect your photo. I wouldn't suggest using your Spotmeter to take pictures, at least now, because of the wildly disparate kinds of exposures that you can get. Always a good idea to check your instruction manual if you haven't checked it. There's plenty of references out there, and certainly we're here at Milford Photo to give you a hand. That's my little spiel about spot metering. Hope to see you around. Take and make great pictures.